But another thing that you brought up is one of the stories that you put up, basically about the dream bracket that you would get: Joseph Chen, Mika Galvao, Andrew Tackett, Cade Rotolo, and how we can't get that. But then you also followed up in one of your stories: UFC offered me 6 figures to coach and compete against Mikey, but would have been fully exclusive. This sport is now entering an era where athletes won't be able to compete in CJI or ADCC. And one final annoyance: until I formally declined coaching UFC BJJ show, their athletes could compete in CJI. So I think that last part is the interesting part, that this war wasn't really started until you as a professional said, this contract isn't good for me. And now you're trying to walk away from that. And now there's all of a sudden some conflict.
We've been talking to the UFC for a long time, and no NDAs were signed, nothing was signed. You know what I mean? Like, they're a smart group of people. Hunter Campbell, obviously, I think he really is the brains behind the UFC these days. Like, and he's a very smart, shrewd businessman and lawyer. So, like, most of these conversations, they're just phone call conversations, right? But, like, really, like, what we're trying to establish early is the CJI an enemy or a friend of the UFC? If we're a friend of the UFC, that we're going to be able to kind of work together on these things. But yeah, they did want me to be, as far as I know, pure speculation here, but speculation was that it was going to be Gordon and Mikey. But Gordon is pursuing politics and doesn't want to compete anymore. Also, like, those health problems could be legitimate. Who knows? I don't know. He's opened Kingsway. So, like, we've got another powerhouse gym in Austin, right? So he's busy and he didn't want to compete against Mikey Musumeci. Like, is he scared of Mikey? No. Like, obviously, Gordon's probably the best ever. Mikey's incredibly talented. There's also a massive size discrepancy there. So the second choice was they came to call me to jump on board, and they offered, I won't say the number, they offered a decent amount of money to do it, but really, like, in terms of the commitment, it was a week of filming, and then I'd have to cut my plans to help my buddy in Ukraine. So there were a few factors going into why I wouldn't do it, but it will also be quite a restrictive contract. And I'd love the power of being a free agent. Not everyone has that power where they can market themselves. They do rely on the organization to market them. I mean, honestly, that's kind of why we started the B Team YouTube channel to begin with. We want to be able to market ourselves without reliance on organizations. So yeah, we had conversations where there was nothing in writing, nothing official, but for a long period of time, their athletes were able to do CJI. But when I did formally decline the offer, I asked for too much money, apparently, right? They went with Harrison Gabriel. And props to him. That's a great opportunity for him to get in there. And I did watch his match with Mike. He did do quite well defensively. That was a big jump for a man that hasn't had much nogi experience. But yeah, they afterwards, like, they really did block their athletes from doing our event. And one factor was that after I formally declined the offer, when they were discussing with athletes, which they left really to the last minute, some of the athletes on the show knew for 3 months, some of them knew for 3-4 days. So any athlete that they spoke with that said they were participating in CJI, they weren't put on the show. You basically had to make a choice. And also, like, I won't say who, but I did sneak a peek at some of the text message conversations between the producers of the show and the athletes themselves. And yeah, like, if you were to participate in the show, it would be, you could not do CJI. And again, I do understand that if you're investing in an athlete and you're marketing an athlete, it is a liability for you to now allow that athlete to go compete for another event and risk losing to someone from another organization or risk getting injured. And again, that's why I give props to Chatri and Tom DeBlas, because if we look at it, Cade Rotolo won the million. Ty Rotolo competed, got injured. He had a serious knee injury. But that did not scare them out of allowing their athletes to compete again. It's an athlete-first mentality. You know, like, I think this year I wanted to – basically, we did the teams event, right? Because for me personally, Quintet's the most exciting grappling event that's ever existed. It's the most fun. It's the most exciting. You see all these wild matchups. People aren't scared to lose because – like Polaris on the weekend, you know, Helena won 3 in a row and then lost, or potentially lost. I think she lost one match too, but she's already been out there. banging away at multiple matches. So like really like I wanted to showcase another exciting format in terms of leverage for getting athletes involved in our event. The appeal of $1 million individually versus 1 million shared amongst the team is not as strong here. But I knew after CJI won, a lot of people would copy our format. UFC obviously copied the format, but I wanted to mix it up and showcase another side of grappling, which was this team format. So really, like CGI 2, the plan was always to do something different. Like we already proved that that was the best. People are copying it. Great. That's kind of becoming the unified rule set for jiu-jitsu, which is something that a lot of people criticized that we lacked, was that every organization had different rules. But yeah, this year we're going to showcase how exciting the teams format is. There's no greater spectacle than when you see like a Fabricio Andre face potentially a Nicky Rod. So like I love that we are mixing it up this year. I will say though, with the UFC seeing CGI 1 and doubling down on copying it and really pushing into the sport, it is a bit of a hindrance because we do lose people like the Tackett brothers, but it is what it is. As long as those boys are getting paid, power to them.
Yeah, and you brought up how important it is to push the fact that team events are really exciting as well. We just had AIGA and Polaris squads this past weekend, and they both delivered. Let's talk about AIGA a little bit. You brought up the Tacketts. Both of them were originally on Team Kasai, who ended up going home with that $500,000 first place grand prize. So if you were in their shoes, what would you rather have experienced? Doing capoeira in the UFC Bowl or getting your share of $500K? Because they definitely would have also won if Andrew Tackett was on that roster.
Yeah, I mean, like to have the Tackett brothers in your team in that AIGA event, like the Tackett brothers were involved in the two previous AIGA, like the qualifying events for the teams. Like obviously the teams shuffled around a bit.
They earned their spot, yeah.
But they had to basically sit out on the finale and the grand prize. Who knows? Like I imagine Richard Byrne, who runs up Kasai, probably compensated them a portion of that prize either way, but yeah, definitely probably not as much of the split of that 500K if they had participated in that event. So that's kind of like the crux of my problem here. A lot of people think it's just me being bitter and me not being the face of everything, and it's really is that I just don't want athletes to miss out on opportunities in this sport, and that's really what's at stake here when someone has an exclusive contract and the promoter isn't willing to allow them to participate in these events, especially events like they were in the team for the first two and they missed out on the finale and the grand prize. And yeah, I watched all 3 or 4 of their events, whatever. And then my Kazakhstan boys that I've spent a lot of time with and stuff, that was a phenomenal event. Props to Tooligan. The finale delivered beyond belief. I will say that I was a bit skeptical of how good the finale would be because I think some of the qualifying events weren't maybe as exciting, but the finale really delivered. And that's a testament also to when there's a lot on the line, a lot of money, people will fight hard. The only thing I could say is would have been more exciting in the pit. There are a few resets, you know?
Yeah, the dual format definitely makes it last so long. So I'm kind of excited to see how the quintet will do. Like, I feel like it won't be nearly as long of a day. I do want to, before we wrap up on the UFC BJJ stuff, there was a post from the former Karate Combat president, Adam Kovac, and he basically said the UFC does not want to promote fights anymore. They want to own the entire fight ecosystem. And when I spoke to some of the fighters that are involved in CJI, like Marcin Machulovitz and Luke Griffith, who is going to be on this episode, we're going to be talking to him next. Marcin basically said he chose CJI because it feels good to be on the right side of history. And when I asked Luke about what the potential of exclusive contracts could do to the sport, he said it could be potentially detrimental. So for you, what is it like being able to see some of these big name athletes choose CJI because they think it is what is best for the sport?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously heartwarming, and it's also a lot of faith in me. Also a lot of stress and pressure, you know what I mean? Like, I felt the same pressure for the last one. Guys chose the chance at $1 million, an event that it hadn't been proven, an event that could have failed. The money could have fucking vanished. They chose to support that over ADCC. So yeah, like, I mean, this is kind of a really crucial spot in the sport where a lot of athletes need to understand we have sort of a call to arms. We're going to be more powerful together. And this will sound like some tacky speech, but really, like, We're at a moment where an absolute powerhouse of an organization has decided that now's the time to enter the sport and own it. And then we have power in numbers. And I'm never going to judge personally, even though it might look like that. There's a means to an end. I'm not going to judge personally if you're already like a big name and you get offered big money. Like if you take it, like I get it. You got to like take care of yourself here, right? But as the athletes out there that aren't you, like me turning down any sort of exclusive deals, right? Like I am not just thinking about me, I am thinking about others here, right? So like if you want to be the best grappler in the sport and someone like the UFC offers you crazy money, just remember that your opponents aren't necessarily going to get paid very much to face you here. And there's a lot of people, we don't do it for the money, but like we've got to think of each other here because we've all been broke in this sport. Most of the people in the sport are still broke. But like if we stand strong here together and the UFC or similar organizations try to lock people into exclusive contracts, if we stand strong together, they'll be forced to give us opportunities to compete in other things that make us money, right? So like if you do sign it, that's fine. Like I won't have any judgment, but yeah, I do think you'll be on the wrong side of history. If we do look back at this moment in 5 years and we lost and we have grappling controlled by one organization, you have no leverage to negotiate. I mean, if we look at like Francis Ngannou's story and how strongly he was pushed in terms of re-signing a new contract and the difficulties there and him wanting to be paid and how ultimately he got out, he made his bag in boxing and he worked at PFL and stuff. It's like we don't want to be in a position where you're the face of a sport and you're struggling still to make money. There's no incentive for a monopoly to pay athletes more money. Your only choice will be fight or retire. And you can use the leverage of a retirement to try to get more money and boost your contract. But really, like, you have no leverage to say, well, oh, these guys offer me this much. If you want me, pay me this much. Like, I just think there's a lot of smart people in the sport that understand that. There's some people that just have been broke their whole lives and that's going to be too appealing to them. And again, no judgment on that. Like, you got to make enough money to live. You got to take care of your family. But it is what it is. I do think I'm trying to be on the right side of history here. Like, again, and I want to emphasize this, I don't care if I don't promote. This shit takes years off my life. It is so hard to organize these events. Like, the stress it puts me and Seth under to try and make sure everything's perfect is insane. So, like, I mean, ultimately, if the athletes are paid and someone else is running it, like, I don't care. Like, that, it'd almost be a relief. It'd be something off my chest to do things, the more fun things I want to do in my life. Like, CJI is about athlete compensation first and putting power back in the hands of the athletes. I'm providing you an alternative to exclusive contracts. I'm providing you the information of how many people view it, and you can use that to leverage sponsorships. You know, like, again, there's not much in it for me. There's not much in it for me to do this event. I'm just trying to help out other people because when I was coming up, I would have to pay my own way, compete for free. I'd have to do all these things. Like, I would say that prior to sort of Gordon, the Death Squad, and me coming up, professional grappling didn't exist. Your only career path was to open a school one day, get enough accomplishments, and then open a school. But these days, we do have real alternatives here where you could sign with Flow, you could sign with One, you could sign with the UFC, and we don't necessarily want any of them to have a stranglehold on the sport unless those contracts allow room for you to compete for other one-off big events, because then you have the power to make real money elsewhere. You also have the power to shop contracts. And again, while now people are signed to exclusive deals, if the UFC's budget's this much, and to get an Andrew Tackett, it chews up the whole thing, then that means there's no room for a Mika Galvao on the UFC's budget. There's no room for a Cade Rotolo on the UFC's budget. So, like, as fans, first and foremost, enjoy the UFC BJJ. It's a great show. Enjoy the finale. It was great. Watch their events, by all means. I know they're exciting because I made the rules. But understand that there is a lot at stake here. If you want to see the best fight the best, we need these athletes to hold the line at the negotiating table. And a lot of the times these people treat us like idiots and they think we're just going to go hook, line, and sinker into, oh, we're going to show your face at a UFC broadcast. Oh, we're going to do a whatever expo, photo signings. Ultimately that shit's meaningless. That's work. That's you working for them and them helping you. Like, it's a partnership here. But if you really want true power, you need to be able to hold the line on the exclusive part of the contracts.